Imagine investing $1,000 in a small beverage company back in 1994, one that was still struggling to get back on its feet. 30 years later, that $1,000 would be worth more than $2 million. But the return is only part of the story. The stranger part is how a company built on fresh fruit juice ended up creating one of the biggest energy drink brands in the world. Or to put it another way, how a small company turned into a monster. Every brand has a public image. And then there's the reflection. This is Monsters. In 1935, in Southern California, during the depths of the Great Depression, an immigrant named Hubert Hansen and his 3 sons started a small fresh juice business in Los Angeles, Hansen's Fruit and Vegetable Juices. The Great Depression had left California poorer. Families were watching every dollar. Fresh juice had a simple appeal. It was affordable and healthy. In the middle of those hard times, Hansen saw an opportunity. The juices were pressed fresh, left unpasteurized, and sold directly to Hollywood movie studios and local retailers. In 1946, the company opened a larger plant in Los Angeles. The Hansen family's juices soon spread across the western states, then to Hawaii, and eventually to the East Coast. Hubert Hansen died in 1951. His sons kept the business running. But even with that steady success, the company changed very little for decades. The real shift would come in the 1970s, when the next generation of the Hansen family stepped in. In 1977, one of the founder's grandsons, Tim Hansen, saw a way to take the family name in a new direction. Tim secured a license to use the family surname as a trademark and started his own company, Hansen Foods, based in Los Angeles. The family name carried the healthy image his grandfather had built with those natural juices. But Tim had something different in mind. His company started with pasteurized juices, products that could last longer on store shelves, and soon moved into sodas. In 1978 came Hansen's Natural Sodas, soft drinks made with natural ingredients, cane sugar, and some unusual flavor combinations: key lime twist, kiwi strawberry, mandarin lime, mango orange. By the mid-1980s, Hansen's sales had passed $50 million a year. Tim's bet seemed to be paying off. But competing in soda against giants like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo was never easy. After a decade on the market, Tim's company hit a wall. The cost of financing a new plant, combined with sales that fell short of expectations, pushed the business into bankruptcy in 1988. Hansen's assets, including the brand, were bought by California co-packers, which would sell the company again not long after. By then, Hansen was a small regional company, still trying to recover. But the turning point in Hansen's story wouldn't come from inside the company. It would come from 2 men who, at that moment, didn't even know it existed. Rodney Sachs and Hilton Schlossberg were 2 South African businessmen. Sachs had worked as a lawyer in South Africa. Schlossberg had built his career in London before moving to the United States. In 1990, with about $6 million raised from family and friends, the 2 put together an investment group and took control of a small public company in California. The corporate structure was in place. All they needed was the right business to buy. On July 27, 1992, a Los Angeles investment bank brought them an opportunity, a struggling business. The brand was known around the San Francisco Bay Area. It had gone through bankruptcy in 1988 and changed hands a few times since. Sachs and Schlossberg bought it for about $14.5 million. It was Hansen. At the time of the deal, the company employed around 12 people. Annual sales were somewhere near $17 million. It no longer had its own factory. The plant had been sold off in the bankruptcy. It didn't look like much. But Hansen had something valuable, a name people knew. Sachs and Schlossberg bet on that. Sachs became chairman and chief executive. Schlossberg became president and chief financial officer. Soon, the company would take on the name Hansen Natural Corporation. In 1993, Hansen rolled out lines of iced tea, lemonade, and fruit drinks in plastic bottles. Back then, the company was still losing money, despite every effort to turn things around. Anyone holding Hansen stock in those days, no matter how optimistic, could hardly have imagined that $1,000 invested in the company could turn 3 decades later into more than $2 million. In 1996, Hansen tried something new. A smoothie with an energy twist, a creamy fruit drink made with taurine and ginseng. That same year, in its annual report, the company laid out its next move. Hansen planned to launch a lightly carbonated energy drink in a slim 8-ounce can, about 250 milliliters, in early 1997. Similar drinks had already become popular in Europe, and the company believed that kind of product could catch on in the United States. They didn't name it, but the reference was obvious: Red Bull. In 1997, 2 launches happened at almost the same time in the United States. Red Bull entered the U.S. market with its slim 8.4-ounce can. Hansen launched Hansen's Energy in a can of almost the same size. The drink was carbonated, lightly citrus-flavored, and high in sugar and caffeine. The strategy was clear: borrow from Red Bull's European playbook before the Austrian brand could fully establish itself in America. For a while, the plan seemed to be working. Between 1997 and 1998, Hansen's profit doubled. Its stock price quadrupled. Around that time, the company moved from Anaheim to Corona, California, where its headquarters remain today. But Red Bull was building momentum of its own. By the end of the 1990s, the Austrian brand had repeated its European success in the United States and dominated the market, with more than 80% share. Hansen was losing ground in energy drinks, but it kept diversifying into other categories. In 2000, it bought Blue Sky, a natural soda brand. The next year came Junior Juice, a children's juice brand. At that point, Hansen still hadn't gone all in on energy drinks. In 2001, Hansen earned $3 million in profit on $80 million in sales. It was a small regional company, almost invisible next to the giants of the beverage industry. That same year, rival Rockstar Energy launched a 16-ounce can, nearly double the size of Red Bull. It was the same basic logic Pepsi had used against Coca-Cola decades earlier: sell almost twice as much for about the same price. Hansen noticed. Around the same time, a marketing executive named Mark Hall, who had joined the company not long before, proposed something radical. The Hansen brand had a healthy, natural, family-friendly image. But the audience for energy drinks was different: young guys into extreme sports and rock music. To that crowd, Hansen's felt less like an energy drink and more like a juice box. Red Bull, on the other hand, had built a premium image: European, a drink tied almost entirely to performance. Hall's idea was simple and bold: leave the Hansen name off the new energy drink and create an entirely new brand. Sachs, Schlossberg, and the board hesitated. At first, they thought a new brand wouldn't do much for Hansen's reputation. Hall kept pushing, and before long, the test was approved. Before the name came the can. Hansen tested can mock-ups of different sizes in consumer research sessions. In one of those sessions, a participant pointed at the biggest can, a 16-ounce can, and said, "I don't know what you guys are seeing, but that can at the end is a monster compared to the others." Monster. For the design, Hansen turned to McLean Design, a branding agency in California. The result was a neon green M, made of 3 strokes, designed to look like the claws of a beast. The slogan, "Unleash the Beast." On April 18, 2002, Hansen launched Monster Energy in the United States, a black 16-ounce can, nearly twice the volume of Red Bull, sold for about the same price. Street teams handed out samples at concerts, beach parties, and sporting events. The company also began sponsoring motocross, surfing, and skateboarding competitions. In 2003 alone, Hansen's sales topped $100 million for the first time in its history. The company credited much of that jump to Monster. That same year, it expanded the brand's lineup for the first time with Monster Low Carb, a low-carb version. Monster and Red Bull looked completely different, but their marketing playbooks had a lot in common. Red Bull had spent more than a decade building itself through sports sponsorships, especially extreme sports, backing athletes, teams, and even staging its own events. Hansen quickly saw that Monster belonged in that same world. In 2004, Monster's sales grew 162%, more than 3 times Red Bull's pace over the same period. Around that time, Hansen launched a 4-pack, a new format for the energy drink market. In 2005, Forbes ranked Hansen number 1 on its list of the 200 best small companies in America. That same year, Monster Chaos hit the market, a new version made with fruit juice. By then, Monster already held 18% of the U.S. energy drink market. Red Bull still held a much bigger share, close to 50%. To keep up with its own growth, Hansen needed a bigger distribution network. In May 2006, the company announced a U.S. distribution deal with Anheuser-Busch. The partnership gave Monster access to one of the largest beverage distribution networks in the country, and Monster started showing up in convenience store coolers across America. That year, the company hit $600 million in revenue. Also in 2006, the brand launched Monster Assault, with a cola flavor and a camo can, under the slogan, "Declare War on the Ordinary." That same year, skateboarder and entrepreneur Rob Dyrdek became a sponsored athlete. In the years that followed, Monster expanded into Mexico, Canada, Australia, and much of Europe. 2 notable launches followed in 2007. In March came M80 with 80% tropical fruit juice. A few months later came Java Monster, a line that blends premium coffee with Monster's energy drink formula. In October 2008, Hansen shifted part of its distribution from Anheuser-Busch to Coca-Cola. That was the beginning of Monster's relationship with the Atlanta giant. In 2009, the company surprised the market with Nitrous Monster, marketed as the first energy drink infused with nitrous oxide. But in September of that year, one of the first cases emerged that would draw real public attention to how aggressively the company defended its main brand. Hansen sent a cease and desist letter to Rock Art Brewery, a small craft brewery in Vermont, demanding that it stop selling a beer called Vermonster. The case made the news. Retailers organized a boycott of Hansen products, and public pressure eventually forced the company to back down. That same month, Hansen sent another letter, this time to bevreview.com, a website specializing in beverage reviews, after it published an unfavorable review of Monster Energy. To critics, it looked less like brand protection and more like intimidation, a way to silence criticism of the drink. In 2010, new versions hit the market. Monster Absolutely Zero, with 0 sugar and 0 calories, and Monster M3, a super concentrated energy shot in a 145 milliliter bottle. That was also the year Monster signed its first major Formula One sponsorship. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Motorsport team began carrying the brand's logo, and the deal would last 14 seasons. In 2011, Hansen launched Monster Rehab, a mix of energy drink, tea, and lemonade. That same year, the brand created a project that would become central to its cultural strategy, the Monster Energy Outbreak Tour. It was the brand's own touring platform, built around rising artists in hip-hop, rock, and electronic music, with serious production, affordable tickets, and the Monster logo everywhere. Also in 2011, Monster took its first steps into esports, signing a deal with Evil Geniuses. Years later, the brand would become a fixture in competitive gaming, sponsoring dozens of other teams. But 2011 also brought a much darker chapter for Monster. In December of that year, a 14-year-old girl named Anais Fournier died in Maryland. According to the lawsuit filed by her family, the cause listed on her death certificate was cardiac arrhythmia due to caffeine toxicity. In the 24 hours before her death, Anais had consumed 2 24-ounce cans of Monster, each containing 240 milligrams of caffeine. She also had a pre-existing heart condition and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Monster denied any direct link between its product and her death. The company argued that 2 cans of the energy drink could not cause fatal caffeine toxicity, and pointed out that its drinks contained less caffeine than some beverages sold at Starbucks and other coffee shops. At the time, the FDA had also reached no firm conclusion about death reports involving Monster Energy. Even so, the case widened the public debate over energy drinks and caffeine. Health experts began questioning how much of these drinks people were consuming. At the height of the energy drink boom, a warning flag had been raised. By then, Monster had become a runaway success. In January 2012, the company changed its name. Hansen Natural became Monster Beverage Corporation. Shareholders also approved an increase in the company's authorized shares, from 120 million to 240 million. At the time, Monster Energy accounted for more than 90% of the company's revenue. Around this time, the company also became much more aggressive about protecting its brands, including the word Monster, the slogan Unleash the Beast, and the three-claw logo forming the letter M. It was a strategy that would cause trouble more than once. Monster is a common word, one that had been used in plenty of contexts long before the energy drink existed. In July 2012, Monster sent a cease and desist letter to monsterfishkeepers.com, a forum for people who kept large aquarium fish, claiming it could be confused with its energy drink brand. But in August that year, Monster found itself on the other side. For the first time, it wasn't the one going after others over intellectual property. This time, Monster was the one being sued. The lawsuit came from the American band Beastie Boys over the unauthorized use of their music in an online campaign. The Beastie Boys asked for $2.5 million. Monster initially offered $125,000. 2 years later, it would lose the case. The company was ordered to pay $1.7 million to the band, plus $668,000 in legal fees. Months later, Anais Fournier's parents sued Monster Energy. The case would close years later, with a settlement between the family and the company for an undisclosed amount. It became one of the most visible controversies in the company's history and triggered a sharp drop in its stock. Alongside the legal battles, the brand kept spending big on advertising and high-profile partnerships. In November 2012, Monster announced a long-term deal with Professional Bull Riders, the largest bull riding organization in the world. In 2013, the company rolled out 2 new products worldwide: Monster Muscle, with added protein, and Monster Energy Zero Ultra, citrus-flavored, with 0 sugar and 0 calories. Then, on August 14, 2014, Coca-Cola bought a 16.7% stake in Monster Beverage Corporation for about $2.15 billion. But the deal went beyond the money. As part of it, the two companies reshuffled their portfolios. Coca-Cola handed its energy drink brands over to Monster: NOS, Full Throttle, Burn, Mother and Play. In return, Monster handed Coca-Cola its non-energy products: Hansen's Natural Sodas, Hansen's Juices, Peace Tea, and Hubert's Lemonade. And the third piece, the most strategic one, was a global distribution agreement. Coca-Cola became the exclusive distributor of Monster's energy drinks around the world. By then, Monster already held 39% of the US energy drink market. That kind of commercial success draws attention, sometimes from unexpected places. Some of it came from people looking for hidden meanings in the brand's logo. In November 2014, an American Christian activist named Christine Weick posted a video on YouTube claiming that the Monster Energy logo contained references to Satan. Her theory went like this: the 3 green claws that form the M were actually the Hebrew letter Vav, repeated 3 times. Each one stands for the number 6, 3 sixes, 666, the number of the beast from the Book of Revelation. Weick also pointed to the slogan, "Unleash the Beast," as supposed confirmation of the theory. The video went viral, passing 14 million views. Monster denied any connection to satanic symbols. In 2015, Monster reorganized its juice line. Flavors like Chaos, M80, Ripper, and other fruit blends were brought together under a new line, Juice Monster. It was also the year Mango Loco made its worldwide debut, a flavor that would go on to become one of the brand's most popular. That May, India's health authority banned the sale of Monster and other energy drinks that combined caffeine and ginseng in the same product. After a temporary ban, the brand would return to the market with a reformulated recipe. Soon after, Monster was named the official energy drink of the UFC. The deal put the brand front and center on the canvas of the octagon and brought sponsorship of several fighters, including Irish star Conor McGregor, whose shorts began carrying the Monster logo. Monster replaced Cience, which had been the UFC's official energy drink for roughly a decade. The partnership with the UFC, the world's premier MMA organization, is still going today. Also in 2015, Monster filed a lawsuit against the NBA's Toronto Raptors, arguing that the team's new logo, a basketball slashed with 3 claw marks, looked too similar to Monster's own branding. The dispute would drag on for 6 years, and Monster would ultimately lose. In the United States, the brand kept pouring money into major sports sponsorships. In December 2016, Monster replaced Sprint as the title sponsor of Nascar, the biggest stage in American stock car racing. The series was renamed the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. That made Monster only the 3rd title sponsor in NASCAR's top series, after Winston and the Nextel Sprint era. The partnership lasted 3 seasons. After that, Monster was no longer part of the series name, but the brand kept sponsoring drivers and teams. In 2017, the company launched 2 products, Monster Hydro, a non-carbonated energy drink, and Mutant, a carbonated soda line. That same year, Monster sponsored the Winter X Games in Aspen and the Summer X Games in Minneapolis as the official energy drink of both events. In 2018, Coca-Cola's stake in Monster rose to 19.3%. The move didn't come from buying new shares. Monster itself bought back part of its own stock, reducing the number of shares on the market and increasing Coca-Cola's proportional stake. In August of that year, a British pizzeria called Monster Pizza in the small town of Wendover won an intellectual property dispute against Monster Energy in the United Kingdom. The UK Intellectual Property Office ruled that the pizzeria's name was not likely to be confused with the energy drink. According to reports at the time, Monster had already pursued more than 1,000 intellectual property cases. By the end of 2018, Monster had reached a market value of $29.9 billion. In 2019, the company went back to tea with the launch of Dragon Tea, a line of energy teas made with green tea, white tea, and yerba mate, all with caffeine. In sports, the brand entered the FIA World Rallycross Championship with its own team, the Monster Energy RX Cartel, and began sponsoring drivers and teams across the rally world. In November 2019, Monster appeared in pop culture in an unexpected way. Death Stranding, the game by Japanese director Hideo Kojima, was released for PlayStation 4 and featured cans of Monster Energy in the game, which players could use to restore the main character's energy. By then, Monster had also become the main sponsor of Yamaha motor racing in MotoGP. Monster was a long way from the small regional company it had once been. In 2020, its global sales reached $4.6 billion. The next year, it launched the Reserve series in the United States, with flavors like white pineapple and watermelon. Before long, the line would reach international markets. In January 2022, the company announced the purchase of Canarchy Craft Brewery Collective for $330 million. The deal gave Monster the infrastructure it needed to enter the alcoholic drinks business. On October 10, 2022, American rival Vital Pharmaceuticals, the maker of Bang Energy, filed for bankruptcy protection after a string of legal battles. In one of them, it had been ordered to pay $293 million to Monster over false advertising, involving an ingredient called supercreatine. The next year, Monster acquired nearly all of Vital Pharmaceuticals' assets, including Bang Energy itself, for about $362 million. The rival it had just beaten in court now belonged to Monster. At the same time, Monster was moving ahead with the plan behind the Canarchy purchase, entering alcohol. In March 2023, the company launched its first alcoholic line under the Monster name, The Beast Unleashed, with 6% alcohol and 4 flavors at launch. Also in 2023, reports emerged that the company had filed more than 100 trademark oppositions in Japan. Among the targets were Pokémon, Monster Hunter, and Monster Musume. The curious part was that some of these franchises, like Pokémon, launched in 1996, were already well known before Monster Energy even existed, back in 2002. In October 2023, Monster introduced another alcoholic product, Nasty Beast Hard Tea, a line of hard iced tea with 6% alcohol, under the slogan, "Tea with an Attitude." The following month, Monster announced it would move its Formula One sponsorship from Mercedes to McLaren starting in 2024. The brand's logo began appearing on the helmets and racing suits of drivers Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. In 2024, Monster posted annual revenue of $7.49 billion and net income of $1.51 billion. It had more than 6,500 employees worldwide, with headquarters in Corona, California. In March 2025, the company announced a leadership change. Rodney Sachs, then 75, told the board he would step down as co-CEO. On June 13th, Hilton Schlossberg became Monster's sole CEO. In May 2025, the brand ran into trouble again over the caffeine in its products. Italy's Ministry of Health ordered a retail chain to pull the vanilla and mocha flavors of Java Monster, finding that the 300 milligrams of caffeine per can exceeded the limits allowed in the country. Also in 2025, Monster launched a U.S. version in partnership with Formula One driver Lando Norris, a melon and yuzu flavored edition. It was one more collaboration with a major name in global sports, as the brand had already done with Lewis Hamilton. And that company, the one losing money roughly 30 years earlier, closed 2025 with more than $8 billion in revenue and nearly $2 billion in net income. In January 2026, Monster officially arrived in Thailand with the original and ultra-white versions. In a twist, Thailand is where Krating Dang was born, the drink that inspired Red Bull, Monster's main rival for nearly 3 decades. And there was more to come. Monster announced a limited edition gold can in partnership with Lando Norris, set for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and celebrating the Formula One world title he had won the previous season. Over all these years, Monster's visual identity has barely changed. The 3-claw M is still the same. What changes are the colors, used to separate each product line. Today, Monster is sold in more than 140 countries, with hundreds of flavors, regional editions, and product lines that shift from market to market. The brand holds about 30% of the U.S. energy drink market, behind only Red Bull, which leads with about 43%. Monster was born from an unlikely story: natural juices, sodas, bankruptcy, new owners, and a failed attempt to take on Red Bull. It only found its way when it stopped looking healthy and familiar, and took on a black can, 3 green claws, and a name that seemed far too big for such a small company. Then came the sponsorships, the lawsuits, and the trademark fights against a brewery, a pizzeria, a basketball team, and even video game franchises. And that company, bought for less than $15 million, is now worth more than $80 billion, with a name that turned out to be prophetic. It really was a monster. If you made it this far, subscribe. There are more brand stories like this one coming. And if there's a brand you think deserves this kind of deep dive, drop it in the comments.